Good morning and welcome to the channel. We are back with another episode, and if you'll remember, this is a place that I started on about a year ago maybe. There was a spiral staircase here running from the basement to the second story. We tore that out somewhat methodically because we weren't sure what was going to happen with this space in the future, but since that time I framed out the opening of the circle square, and we're gonna do a countertop on top of it, kind of make it like an island cabinet. There won't be any storage or anything under it, unfortunately, because there has to be what's the word? Adequate headroom for when you do go down the stairs. And if you'll also remember, I tore up the floor and poured some self-leveler in preparation of putting down a new floor. It all turned out pretty good. There's a couple of ridges, so I'm gonna have to read the manufacturer's instructions to see how much of an allowance there is for inconsistencies. That's always a good first thing to do, is to check the manufacturer's recommendations for installation, because they made it and they've engineered it to be installed a certain way. So we're gonna do that first. All right, I'm gonna throw a straight edge on this. Is this straight? It should be pretty straight. Let's throw this on and see what my floor looks like real quick. I'd say that's pretty good. There's a bit of a dip there, maybe like almost an eighth. So I'm gonna go around and just check a lot of this. Okay, there's a hump there, and that's where two of the self-leveling mixes merged. You can kind of see the color disorientation. Words. Discolorization right here. High spot there. So it might take a little bit of time to prep this floor still, but we'll read the instructions first to see, so we don't work more than we need to. And in today's exciting episode, we'll be installing this stuff. Tidal Core Water Defense Technology. 55% more stable than standard laminate core. Opening the package up, you can see that we've got 3 different widths of flooring. Small, medium, and large, I guess. And it's just the classic click flooring where you insert it on a bit of an angle and it seats into its spot. Fairly rigid, which is nice. Most of this flooring is a lot thinner, so it's nice that the tongue and groove is quite thick. So if there is any variations in the ground, it should be able to hold up a bit better than a lot of the thinner tongue and groove flooring. Next thing to do is to figure out which way to run the floor. Typically you can run it in the direction of the main light source, which is usually a window. I have a few different options in this area because we have a window there, we have a big window there, window there, window there. So I have to decide what direction I'm gonna run. Here is the underpad we're gonna be using. This stuff always cuts really easily. You can just use your utility knife and zip. Like that. I got a couple rows started here, and you can see how this underlayment. Someone's cutting down a tree. You can see how this underlayment comes with a self-adhesive strip here. So just to keep everything in place, we may as well use it. Again, it doesn't really need it for the vapor qualities. as it is a finished and conditioned space in the basement. Just to show you how it's done, you just stick it on like this, all the way up. And then we can begin our first row here. We're kind of fortunate in the case where we are having a transition strip here. So what I'm going to do is simply cut this 3.5-inch piece to length. I'm leaving a 3/8 on either side for expansion and contraction. That's pretty important when you're doing, especially a floating floor system. It has to move freely. Otherwise, if there's pressure on it or it's too tight against the walls, there's a chance it can bubble and it'll just mess up your flooring. So make sure you have the proper expansion and contraction gap wherever your flooring terminates into a wall or cabinets or any other obstruction. So I've got this first piece cut here with the groove facing out against the wall or the starter point. I'll lead with my tongue. And then to get going here, I'm just gonna snap this first full length board in, and this board I'm gonna have to cut. It has to be installed this way, but if you flip it around end for end, you can just get a measurement here, or a marking here rather, and then this side will be cut, meaning when I flip it end for end again after it's cut, there'll be a tongue on this side, groove on this side, cut end against the cabinetry on this side. So I'm going to cut that first and then we'll mark out that corner there. Alright, I've cut that end off. It will go against the cabinet on this side, meaning I can measure out this a bit easier. So what we can do here, we can just grab a scrap, a straight edge of some kind. Usually I have a speed square around, but you can use anything. And I'll eyeball the 3/8 gap. So I'm going to cut it here to slide in. I'll cut it here. So this and this are my marks. That's what I'm going to cut out. Here we go, it's cut out. And we just snap it in. There we go, we got our first section done here. So you want to make sure when you install these that the seam is closed tightly. Once it is, you can begin the next row. It is square now. So I'll clip that in, roughly 20-degree angle, and it should lay flat like that. I'm going to carry on, put it on time lapse, we'll see how far we get. As I move along and fit this row in, I just give it a bit of a tap as it's on the angle to close any gaps. And once it finds its place, it should just fall down. Just like that. You really want to make sure when you install this stuff, the grooves are all cleaned out, as well as the tongue. It's easy for stuff to fall in there and block it from closing fully. This is my tapping block though, so clearly it's not going to be salvageable. Okay, next row. it is the next day. I didn't record this portion. Got inside the kitchen done, and now I'm working on the hallway. I decided to stop a bit earlier, focus on something else so I could put on my pants to have knee pads in them just to take care of my knees. And then this is where I'm currently at, starting to enter the hallway. There's a return air register right here, and I'm tackling the jambs. They can be a bit tricky because ideally you feed the floorboard underneath the jamb. There is an easier way to do that, and that is by using this oscillating tool. So if you are doing a floor, I would recommend getting one of these. I have a wood blade on here, which is probably the blade I use the most. What you want to do is get your thickness of flooring. So I just use a scrap. This is my tapping block, so it's a little beat up anyways. Put it on the jamb with the underpad underneath, and that's the height of your floor. So it's as easy then as cutting this jamb off at that height, allowing the new floor to slide underneath. The thing you do want to be mindful of when you're doing that is not to have your blade on an angle. If I have it on an angle like this, then I'm cutting the back side of this piece lower. My flooring won't slide in underneath. So you want to make sure it's flush like this. This doesn't matter as much, but this angle going down, you just want to avoid. So typically I'll put my line in like that, and then what I can do is remove my block and just come at it on a bit of a better angle. And then once you're through, you should be able to tap this piece out. Make sure there's nothing in there, otherwise it'll just get frustrating. That should be good. And then that should allow this piece. Actually have to cut this a little bit. It's hitting the actual framing, so I'll just nip that off there. And likewise nip it off here. I'll just get rid of this like this. Try that again. Gonna have to tap it from this edge. Clearly bringing this whole piece along with me. So I'm gonna have to tap it from this side and put pressure on this board. I can hit this directly because there's gonna be a transition strip covering all of that. This time I'll stand on here so it doesn't move. So now this board is underneath the door jamb. And I think that's the best way to tackle that problem. Ideally, the casing and the doors are installed after the flooring to save that headache, but that's how we do it if they're not. I'm gonna carry on and then give you an update when it's done. just finished up these last couple rows. The battery died for the camera, so I wasn't able to get those last couple there, but you can see that I got cut around the vent, cut those narrow strips against the wall, again leaving a gap for the expansion and contraction. And then the only thing that's left, I'll show you this side too, right in there, is this island. We're gonna tackle that in another video, as well as the trim, the baseboard and the door casing in a couple of places has to be done as well. So that'll be in a future video, I'm sure, perhaps. That's gonna do it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.